Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 21st January today, and in this video we are going to solve some important questions which are very much relevant for your preparation. Before we'll start solving these questions, or we can say before we'll start discussing these questions, I would like to give you the brief introduction about this initiative so that if you are new to our channel, you will get more connected with it. Basically, every day we try to upload this video on our YouTube channel exactly at 6 p.m. And in this video, we try to discuss various types of questions, and those questions are taken from various sources. So based on the sources of these questions, we divide these questions into three sets, we can say. We divide this video into three different parts. In the first part of our discussion, we discuss questions with respect to current affairs. What we do? We take up the most important articles from the newspapers, we break them down into the simplest language possible, we discuss them, and we try to derive the possible prelims question from that particular article so that it will give you the idea how the question can be asked from these news articles, which part of the newspaper is important for your preparation, and how you should go through when you are reading these news articles, what should be your approach. That is all we are going to learn in the first part of our discussion. After solving questions with respect to current affairs, we will shift our approach to the another part of our discussion where we will discuss a static topic. We had started this initiative about discussing these static topic questions from last 2 to 3 months now, and we are taking a very discrete approach in it. Right now we are discussing the questions with respect to Indian polity, and we had reached up to the office of president in Indian polity. So today we are going to discuss a concept about impeachment of the president with respect to Indian constitution and derive a possible question from that particular topic, and it will give the idea how the question can be asked from that particular topic. So after discussing the questions with respect to current affairs and this static part, we will shift our approach to the last part of our discussion where we will take up few previous year questions. you know to me this is the most important part of our discussion, because in this part we will learn how UPSC uses different trends while framing your papers, what is the vocabulary they use. We will learn how can we solve these questions if we don't have the proper knowledge, what are the different methods by which we can solve these questions, and also we'll try to learn how we can implement this knowledge which we get from these previous year questions in the upcoming exam. So this is in a nutshell about this video what we are going to do in here. Now, after before we will start now solving these questions, I would like to request you guys one thing which I believe if you will follow, it will help you in many ways in clearing your prelims exam. Suppose you are watching this video, what I recommend you guys to note down these questions. If you have your own, develop your own question bank. If you have your own question bank before the exams are there, I am talking about month of May, when your exams are only few days, when you are left with only few days. So at that time the stress level is very different. I know I had been aspirant myself. I wanted, at that time I would want to revise everything. I would want to go through CSAT, I would want to go through current affairs, I would want to go through the static syllabus, I would want to go through previous year questions, but time does not permit us to go for this last mile revision. So what will you do if you are left with that much, you are left with only that much time? So if you have these questions with you at that time, what you would do, you would just revise these questions. These questions would definitely connect you with the current affairs part, it would connect you with the static part, it would definitely connect you with the previous year questions, and it is definitely going to boost your confidence before the exams are there. And also, who knows, as we discussed what are our sources of the questions, and the good thing about this is it is the same source which the UPSC is going to use for framing your questions. So there are chances that these questions can get repeated in the exam. There are chances that these questions can coincide in the exam question with the exam questions, or if not the questions, at least the statements will coincide. Suppose if not the statements either, but trust me, these would be the concepts which they are going to ask from. So being on the safer side, I would recommend you guys to note down these questions and develop your own question bank and go for the last mile revision with respect to these questions. Boost your confidence before the exam. Exams are there, and clear your exams. So with this, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel, share it with your friends so that they may also get benefited from this initiative, and also do write in the comments what do you feel about the video, because your comments are very much valuable to us. Your feedback is very much valuable to us. If you comment, it boosts our confidence, it shows where we are right now, how our work is going on. And also when you subscribe, it helps the channel to grow. When you hit the like button, it boosts our confidence, and we want to deliver much better lectures here. So I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe it, do share it with your friends, and do write in the comments what you feel about the video. So now without any delay, let's have a look at the first question which we had brought today. You can see the question, it is really something technical here which we had brought today. And the question is about the plenary laws, plenary legislation, and delegated legislation. So you may ask me a question, sir, what is the need of this question? Why we had brought this question today? This question, what was the need of that? Because it has direct connection. Why we had brought this question? Because it has direct connection with the news article which was in the Hindu newspaper today. Basically, there was a controversy between UGC, University Grants Commission, and UGC and state governments. There is controversy going on between UGC and state governments. What is the controversy about? That we will. I would like to tell you guys. There is a UGC had recently, amended the University Grants Commission UGC Regulation Act. They had brought up the Regulation 7.3. Recently, they had brought up Regulation 7.3. So in this Regulation 7.3, what they are supposing, what they want to do with respect to state governments, that whenever they have to choose a VC for the state universities, they would, to choose a VC, they would need the lieutenant governor and a selection committee. So what is UGC supposing here? That in this selection committee, one member should be from the UGC, and that's what the state government is opposing. State government is saying that it is the overreach from the UGC, which is the central institution. So this is the whole controversy, why we had brought this question. Now, if this was the controversy, what is the connection between the plenary legislation and a delegated legislation? So that I would explain to you guys here. In the Indian legislative system, there are two types of legislations, broadly describing them: the plenary legislation and the delegated legislation. To understand it in a very simpler terms, I would tell you what plenary legislation is. For plenary legislation, it is given by the legislators. For example, a law is passed by the legislative assembly at the central level. It is passed by both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and the president will give its assent. So in this way, if a law is passed, that it becomes a plenary legislation. And for what is delegated legislation? For delegated legislation, it is something the executive makes a law, and this law does not go through this procedure, and it becomes a delegated legislation. Some executive will form a law. For example, in this case, the UGC, which is an executive body, we can say it is an central body. It passed a regulation which is 7.3, regulation 7.3. It did not went through the Lok Sabha, it did not went through the Rajya Sabha, they did not ask for the presidential assent with respect to this. So it is a delegated legislation. Now, what is the connection of this plenary legislation and delegated legislation with respect to this controversy? You would have heard about the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. I hope you would have heard about that. And in 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution, you would have heard about that. The lists, the 7th schedule gives us 3 lists: the state union list, it gives us the state list, and it gives us the concurrent list. These 3 lists are given to in under 7th schedule, and we know that in the items which are in union list, they are governed by central government. Items which are in a state list, they are governed by state governments, and items which are in the concurrent list, both governments can make laws with respect to that. So here is a controversy. Now here is a situation. We know that UGC deals with the education. In which list does education come in? Education fits in the concurrent list. So if education fits in the concurrent list, now the now we are reaching to our question here, why we had brought this question. If education comes in the concurrent list, so suppose if the state government will form any law with respect to education, and central government will form any law with respect to education, and both the laws will contradict with each other, whose law will prevail? Whose law will supersede? will center's law supersede or the state's law? Definitely it is the center's law who will supersede. So center's law will supersede. But which article does describe as this? It is article 254. It is article 254(1), which describes as that if both the center and state makes a law on an item which is in the concurrent list, it is the center's law which will supersede. But here is a catch. Here is a catch which I guess it is very much deliberate from the constitutional body itself, that here they define that only those laws of the center which are plenary in nature will supersede those laws of the state which are also plenary in nature. That is, if plenary law from the center, it will supersede the plenary law of the state. Plenary law of the center will supersede the delegated law of the state. But it does not describe about what is the situation when the delegated law of, if there is a delegated law of a center, will it supersede the state's law? Will it supersede the state's plenary law? So here is a situation, here is a catch. And with respect to that, we had different judgments given by the Supreme Court, which describes about the plenary law and the delegated law in few judgments. For example, Tika Ramji versus State of UP. In this judgment, the Supreme Court categorically said that if it is a plenary law, then only it can, it can supersede the plenary law of the state. If it is delegate law, then the plenary law of the state will supersede in this judgment. But it was in others judgment from the Supreme Court itself, it has shown that, for example, there is a delegated law. The UGC has come up with the regulation 7.3. Suppose if they will put it in the parliament, it is passed by the Lok Sabha, it is passed by the Rajya Sabha, and the president gives accent to this regulation. So this delegated law, which we can say subordinate law, it has become now a type of plenary law, as it has got the assent from the president. It has been passed through the legislations, it has passed through the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In one judgment, the Supreme Court says it will supersede the plenary law. In other judgment, same situation, the Supreme Court said it will not supersede. So there is a confusion from the Supreme Court's point of view here. So here what the author suggests is that the Supreme Court should come up with the very much clear guidelines with respect to this, and this issue won't come again. So this is the whole situation here. Why this UGC? Why is this controversy here? Because it is right now it is a controversy between UGC and the state universities in the Tamil Nadu. So I hope you had understood this topic very well. You had understood the difference between the plenary legislation and the delegated legislation. You had understood about the Article 254, how here is a role of the 7th schedule, how if any item is in the concurrent list, whose law will supersede. We understood that. We also understood different judgments in which if a judgment is delegated in nature from the central government, then it will not supersede the plenary legislation from the state government. And in another case, the Supreme Court is opposite to it. So there is no clear definition about this. Now here the author says that Supreme Court should come up with the clear definition, with the clear guidelines with respect to such issues. So with this, I hope you had understood this topic very clearly. You had understood what is the concern here. There is a concern of the 7th schedule, there is a concern of the federalism, the relation between the center and the state. So with this, let us solve this question and get more clear idea about the plenary legislation and the delegated legislation. Here the question says, which of the following best describes the fundamental difference between the plenary legislation and the delegated legislation in India? First statement, it says plenary legislation is made by the executive branch while delegated legislation is made by the legislature. Totally incorrect. It is totally opposite. Second statement, plenary legislation is made by the legislature, parliament or state assemblies, while delegated legislation is made by the executive or the other bodies under powers granted by the legislature. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option B. With this, I hope you had understood the topic itself and also the concepts through which we revolved. Also, you had understood the context of this question, the controversy going on between the UGC and the Tamil Nadu state government. What is their role? What is the role of UGC? You had understood the regulation 7.3. You had understood these laws. You had understood the concurrent list. How does it deal with? You had understood Article 54(1). With this, let's move to the another question and see what we had brought on the next slide here. Recently and they yesterday the president, 47th president of USA, he took his oath and he is now the president of USA, Mr. Donald Trump. And this author here, this article about the India Middle East European corridor, the author here suggests that it is the priority to the America now. It would be the priority to the America now. Usually, about the India Middle East European corridor, uh, you know, about this, the main purpose of this Indian about this corridor is that it is to counter the China's Belt and Road Initiative, and also it is an alternative to the Suez Canal, because we had seen how much the Suez Canal gets disturbed whenever there are some crises in this particular region, especially Hamas Palestine, especially Palestine Israel area. When there is crisis, this canal gets disturbed. But we had seen Houthis rebels, how they interact there, how they deal with this stuff, how there are piracy issues from Somalia. So there are various issues with respect to that, and also the China's increasing power in the geopolitics, their Belt and Road Initiative. To overcome these issues, this India Middle East European corridor, this idea, India and France came up with this idea. So when it here, why we had brought this article, because the author here suggests that it should be the America's priority now, as there are various, it would be various entities are in this corridor involved. For example, it would start from Mumbai, then in UAE we are seeing it here, Jabal Ali UAE, then Al Guwayfat, then we have in Saudi Arabia Harad, then in Riyadh, then we are seeing in Saudi Al Haditha, Haifa in Israel, and Piraeus in Greece. So these are various countries through which it will pass through, and various countries are involved in it. USA is also involved in it. France is involved in it. Jordan is involved in it. So various, it is the multi project in which various countries are involved in it, and it is the best alternative to this Suez Canal. And it was this idea, when this was framed, it was framed during the G20 summit 2023, which was held in India itself. Then idea of this India Middle East economic corridor was framed. So with respect to this question, let's see what does it say. The India Middle East European corridor was announced in conjunction with which of the following events or grouping? It is G20 Summit 2023. So with respect to this question, the correct option is option B. So with this, I hope you had understood India Middle East European economic corridor. Little idea, you had got the little idea about it. We had discussed this in past many times, in actually basically in last year. So there is not much needed here. You should know who are the countries involved. You should know what is the role of India and France, who are the pioneers of this concept. You should know through which countries, who are the major ports, we can say, who are involved in it. You should know whether it is the railway connection or roadway connection. It is the railway connection, and it would be port to port connection. So with this, let's move to the another question and see what we had brought on the next slide. Here the connection, here the topic is about the Gulf of Mexico. Why we had brought this question? Because we saw that how the US president, he took his oath, the 47th president, the Mr. Donald Trump, and it was very much clear what his policies would be. And in this speech, he had shown his interest, what he is going to change. First of all, what he is going to change with respect to Mexico, he is going to put the Mexican borders will be pushed to national emergency. What he talked about, Mexican borders would be pushed in the national emergency. Second thing which he mentioned about in this speech, Gulf of Mexico to be called as Gulf of USA, Gulf of America. This Gulf of Mexico will be called as Gulf of America. And also illegal migrants will be sent back, and also there would be only two genders recognized in USA, only two genders, that is male and female. Only these two genders will be recognized in USA. That is also concerning for the people there. And another thing which is mostly expected from him is that he would withdraw from Paris Agreement, and also he would increase his speed in the natural gas and natural fuels. That is, he will withdraw from the Paris Agreement, and he will much focus on fossil fuels, natural gas, and other such elements which are required for the for the energy purposes. So with respect to that, my eye catched the Gulf of Mexico. We need to know it is connected with the Atlantic Ocean through which strait. We need to know through which strait. It may be asked in the exam, as it was mentioned. It became very much important. It is connected through Strait of Florida. About Gulf of Mexico, why they are it is why USA is prioritizing this, because it is high in resources, fossil fuels, natural gas. It is very much high in resources, and they want to name it from Gulf of Mexico. They want to change it from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of USA, to Gulf of America. So with this, I hope you had understood a little bit about Gulf of Mexico. It is connected to the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of North Florida, and it is bordering North America, we can say. So with this, let's move to the another question and see what we had brought on the another slide here. Here the question says, the welfare and social security of senior citizens in India primarily fall under the purview of which of the following ministries? Why we had brought this question? Because there was an argument in the Supreme Court, a plea in the Supreme Court basically. So before we will discuss the plea, let's solve the question. The question says, the welfare and the social security of senior citizens in India primarily fall under the purview of which of the following ministries? Is it Ministry of Health and Family Welfare? Is it Ministry of Senior Citizens? Is it Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment? Is it Ministry of Women and Child Development? Definitely it is option C, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So why we had brought this question? Because this is the point why we had brought this question, because of the option B. The reason is that there was a plea in the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court should direct that there should be a separate ministry for the senior citizens. The plea was in the Supreme Court, which asked Supreme Court to direct central government to frame a separate, to make a separate ministry for senior citizens, so to which the Supreme Court actually denied it, out of that it is very much out of their jurisdiction. They cannot direct the central government to go for the another ministry. But the Supreme Court expressed its desire that the central government is very much well known about the situations happening in our country, as by coming time, there would be states in our country which would be having more senior citizens. We discussed that in our earlier classes also, that how in the South India there are 63 senior citizens with respect to 100 children. So here the Supreme Court said that central government is very much aware of the situation, and we believe if they will feel so, they will come up with this kind of ministry. Till now there is no Ministry of Senior Citizens right now. So that's why we brought this question. It was to confuse you. Basically it comes under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. You should know that there is no Ministry of Senior Citizens in our country yet. So with this, we completed all the questions with respect to the current affairs topics, which are very much important. We discussed them, and I hope you had understood every point. Here I would like to mention one thing about our initiative. I am getting messages that, sir, you are taking way huge time in the introduction part, but this is very much important for us, as we had recently started this initiative and we want to get connected with more people. So if we will not give the introduction, they would not come to know what we are discussing here, and we know how the psyche works. If you will not introduce your initiative, you will not introduce your work, people will least be interested in it. Now about this initiative, I would like to mention one more important thing here, that in this initiative we do not only discuss the questions. If you will understand it, it is not only the question discussion. We don't only do the quiz here, but what we do the news analysis. Basically here we do the news analysis in the quiz form. News and analysis in the quiz forum, we frame the questions so that you will get the idea how the questions could be asked, and in explaining those questions, we give the news analysis, what had happened, what is happening every day, what had happened last day, what was in the newspaper. So it is more news analysis than quiz itself. The questions are from those news articles. Now this was a little update here, because I got a comment that, sir, please add the daily updates. Basically it is the daily update which we are doing here. So with this, we completed today's important topics which were in the news. There were others too, but many of them were in a premature stage, yet there would be more discussion over them. Then only we will bring those articles, because what the government is thinking, something like that, there was no discrete something which can be asked in the exam. So that's why we ignore them. Once there would be discrete articles, we will definitely bring those articles. And there were many other articles which we are discussing from last 6 months now, and I don't felt any need to bring such articles and derive the same questions which we had done from last 6 months. So that's why today's topic, it only contained few questions with respect to few articles. Now with this, we complete our today's discussion with respect to current affairs part. Now let us shift to the another part of today's discussion, where we will discuss the office of the president, and we will discuss an important question from the office of the president. You know, yesterday we discussed about Article 56 and 57. We saw that how, you know, we discussed about the term of office. We saw how he can resign. And today we also saw how there is a little connection. Usually people get confused, that impeachment of the president is there in Article 56. Even though removal is there, he can withdraw his, he can give the resignation, but impeachment is not clearly that well mentioned in Article 56. Now today we have to discuss about the impeachment process, and it is very much clearly defined by the Constitution under Article 61. So what is this impeachment? This impeachment term, about impeachment term, it is only used for the office of the president. It is only used for the office of the president. And there is a difference between impeachment and removal, that we will understand what is that difference. For example, I would here in nutshell tell you what is removal. Removal is the last point of the impeachment. Impeachment is started and removal is the end of the impeachment. At the end, the president is removed, and impeachment is started at the end when all the procedure is completed. Then he is removed. We can say once it is initiated, the removal process is initiated, is called impeachment is initiated. Then once it is removed, he becomes removed. So impeachment leads to removal with respect to president, and this impeachment term is only used for the president of Indian Constitution. In the Indian Constitution, it is only used for the president. So what does the Article 61 says? Article 61 deals with the presidential impeachment, and it is early and clearly and categorically titled impeachment. This article, it basically talks about the impeachment. So how it is done? Suppose, for example, there is a president and he is violating the Constitution of India, and people are not happy with him as he is violating the Constitution of India. Now how the government can impeach him, that we have to understand. So this impeachment process, first of all, there would be, when the impeachment process will start, first of all 14 days notice will be given to the president. 14 days notice will be given to the president, and a motion will be moved in either of the house of the parliament, either in Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha. Once the impeachment motion will be moved, in this impeachment motion, it will not be moved by simply it is being introduced. No, 1/4 of the total members of the parliament should support it. 1/4 members of the parliament should support this motion, then only it will be accepted. Once this motion is accepted, then then voting will be done, and in the same house where it is introduced, for to accept this motion, to by for to start this impeachment process, 2/3 majority should vote against to the president. 2/3 majority of the total membership of the house should vote against this, should vote in favor of this motion, or we can say against the president. Then only this would be sent to the another house. And in the another house, what will happen there? In the another house, there would be the discussion over the impeachment, whether there would be investigation will start in the another house. For example, if it started in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha it will be taken in, and the investigation will start. In this investigation time, the president will be given time to answer the questions which are raised against him. He will be listened there, and this investigation, it will also, when it will be passed, it will be passed by 2/3 majority. So in both the houses, this resolution, this motion will be passed by 2/3 majority. Once it is passed by the both houses, there would be time given to the president. He will respond to the question, and once the both houses feel, second house investigates it and it clarifies that all the allegations against the president are right. Then after this, he is removed from the constitution. He is removed from his post. Then the removal process is started. Then once this is when the investigation process is done for by is supported by 2 by 3 majority of the house, then the president is removed. So this is the whole process of the removal of the president. How 14 days notice is given to him before the motion is set. Then this motion should be supported by 1 by 4th members of the total 1 by 4th. It should be supported by 1 by 4 members of the total population of the house, we can say. Then it should be supported once it is it should be voted by 2 by 3. It should win by 2 by 3 majority in the house. Then when it goes for the investigation in the another house, it should stand 2 by 3 majority there also. Then he is removed. When this whole process is going on, can president do his functions normally? When this whole process of impeachment is started against the president, can president do his functioning regularly? Can he hold his office and deal with his things, what deal his with duty regularly? Yes, he can do. He is bound to do his things regularly. He has to do all the things what he used to do. Once he is removed, he is removed. So this is the whole situation how president is removed. This is all mentioned in Article 61 of the Indian Constitution. So with this, let us solve the question and get the proper idea about this question. In this way, the question can be asked in the exam. Here the question says, consider the following statements regarding the impeachment of the President of India under Article 61 of the Indian Constitution. First statement, the impeachment of the president can be initiated in either house of the parliament, 100% correct, provided the proposal is supported by 1/4 of the total membership of the house of that house, 100% correct. That is what we discussed. Second statement, the impeachment process requires a 2/3 majority of the members present and voting in both houses of the parliament, 100% correct. 2 by 3, it should win by the 2 by 3 majority. Third, the president can only be impeached on grounds of violation of Constitution of India, and the procedure must be conducted in strict adherence to the due process prescribed in the Constitution, 100% correct. Fourth statement, if the president is impeached, the vice president automatically assumes the office of the president without the need for a separate election. No, there is definitely the need for the separate election. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3. So I hope you had understood the impeachment process in a very simpler language. I hope you had understood this question also. Now with this, let's shift to the last question of today's discussion, which is from the static part. Let's see what we had brought. Here the question is about the Mount St. Helens, where it is located. We will discuss where this mountain is located. I would like to tell you a few things about this part of our discussion, that we had already discussed questions related to ancient India. We had discussed questions related to the medieval India with modern India and Indian freedom struggle. Right now we are discussing questions with respect to physical geography. Physical geography. So in this, what this question tells you. First of all, you should know what are the volcanic mountains. Which are the mountains which have dormant volcanoes, who have the active volcanoes. You should know the types of mountains. Fold mountain, what is old fold mountains, what is other type of the mountains. So this question gives you the idea what are the block mountains. You should know about that. You should know the important mountains, their locations, and also whenever there is any earthquake or anything such happening, you should know the location of that place. That this question gives you the idea how the questions can be asked, how you can connect the questions, how you can connect the static part with the current affairs. So let's solve this question. Not that much anything, this type of questions which are very much factual. In this you cannot use your common sense, you cannot use your logic. But what can you do? If options are like that, then you can use the common sense. Here the question says, where is the volcanic mountain Mount St. Helens located? This seems very much English name, and if we look at the options, we can give a layman's guess, which would be United States of America, and this is the correct option. But whenever there are these types of questions, where you have to be very much factually strong. And if you don't know the question, it is preferable for you guys to not attempt it. Not attempt it. You don't want to lose your marks while attempting these questions when you don't have the actual knowledge. But whenever there are statement based questions, at that time there are different tricks through which you can answer it. Here also you can use, as options are in such a way that you can definitely comment which would be the correct answer, but usually options would not be like that in the factual questions. So this is what I wanted to add here. With this, I would like to thank you guys for staying with me. Thank you very much. Please do subscribe the channel, share it with your friends. When you subscribe, it boosts our confidence, it helps the channel grow. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.